If you've been following online political conversation, you may know or have heard of the terms red-pilled, blue-pilled, black-pilled. If you're also, like me, a big fan of The Matrix, you probably also know those terms. But I find that the idea of the black pill has raised the day in many circles, particularly on the political right, in the American political right, and really the Western political right, whereas a few years ago, the red pill, reigned the day when it came to social justice warriors being castigated by mass society in 2016, when it came to the feminist movement around that period as well. It was all about taking the red pill. But now the black pill seems to be the sort of option of choice for so many people on the right, and not just on the right, but also on the left as well. But this is particularly addressed towards people on the right because I myself am on the right. And there are several reasons that people have decided, in my opinion, to endorse this perspective. And for those of you who don't know, to take the black pill simply means to be pessimistic about something, to have a pessimistic outlook on life. To take the red pill means that you're being awakened to something, and to take the blue pill means that you don't want to hear things that may shock your sensibilities and actually get you towards an unorthodox conclusion on a particular issue, in this case, politics. And so a lot of people are pessimistic because they believe, for example, that America could be heading towards a civil war as political tensions rise and differences between a lot of areas of the country seem to be irreconcilable. For example, there's a strong contingent of the country that is pro-life, and there's an even stronger contingent that is not only pro-choice, but is militantly pro-choice to the extent that they will go ahead and try to murder sitting judges and government officials who have the pro-life stance, and on the flip side, who are militantly pro-life so much so that they will go ahead and bomb or vandalize abortion centers, and on the other hand, who are militantly pro-choice that they will go ahead and bomb crisis pregnancy centers that actually help counsel women out of that decision to have an abortion. Both sides, the issue seems irreconcilable. And there's a whole host of other issues that would seem irreconcilable that both sides seem to hold dear. For example, people on the American right tend to have a view of children that runs contrary to people on the more visible elements of the American left. I want to be very clear with my language here because I don't want to indict the whole left or the whole right, but the most visible elements of the political left are in support of child transition. And to most Americans, even people that are not on the right, that is an abysmal and abhorrent practice. It's seen as such, and rightly so. Again, there's so many more issues. So that's one of the reasons people take the black pill. Another reason is because the world right now is no doubt marching towards a global conflict that could potentially have catastrophic implications for the existence of humanity. It could have catastrophic nuclear implications in both Ukraine and particularly in Israel. The hot conflict that could have potentially become even bigger if the United States gets involved more than it already is with Israel, if it declares war on Iran and Iran declares war on Israel, therefore sparking a bunch of political forces to come in and create the perfect storm for a conflict that would wreak havoc upon the lives of people. Another reason would be the general moral and social degradation that a lot of folks on the right see when it comes to the state of modern women. Women who believe that men are inherently oppressive and that who believe that men are the enemy and they're not an aid or an asset, they are inherently the enemy. People who believe, for example, men who believe, for example, that women need to be treated in a particular way that is not deserving of a human being but deserving of something else to correct the excesses of feminist leftism that has become so prominent in how so many progressives weigh in the view of women in society. I mean, whether it be, I can keep going on and on and on, whether it be the censorious assault on free speech that so many tech firms are a part of, whether it be the general hostility towards free speech on college campuses, places that are supposed to teach people to learn, whether it be other ideologies that are rooting themselves in American culture and that are being defended by people who really don't have a clue what they're defending, who do so on the basis of emotional platitudes, not on the basis of anything that is grand, anything that is rational. There are so many reasons why people have taken the black pill. But I don't believe in any case, in both the cases that I have mentioned or the cases that I have not mentioned, the black pill is the appropriate outlook on the world, on the state of affairs, or on life. Now, before I go on and explain why, let me give a little bit of an anecdote here from my own life. I recently made a speech at the posting of this video before the Goldwater Institute, and if it's not already on this channel by the time you watch this video, it will certainly be on this channel very soon. And in that speech, I talked a lot about how I believe we need a revolution of the mind in this country. What I was trying to say was that we need to push the American people into thinking deeply about the issues of our day, not just thinking deeply in a way that satisfies the current pleasures of our era. Oh, I'm going to go and research a bunch of statistics about a particular issue and then use that to reason. No, because if we reason by means of averages, we actually miss the truth. Averages by themselves say nothing, but when you apply that data towards a broader framework of understanding, that's when the data and the statistics become intelligible, not simply by existing, because a measurement is just a measurement. What that measurement means must be deduced by further reasoning. Different story, different day. And so the idea is that a revolution of the mind would also include an embrace of philosophy and sound thinking and reason and things that are so absent from our culture. Well, a gentleman came up to me after my speech, and we had a wonderful conversation. This was a brilliant man. And he looked at me and said, "You want to save America, but I want you to consider something. What if America is already lost? And what if we're just trying to pick up the pieces and piece our broken country back together?" Now, this is a perspective I can understand. If you looked at what has happened in America in the past 3 or 4 years, with people having impunity to go into major city centers and riot and burn down and kill people in the name of social justice, in the name of benevolence, when in all reality, it is neither of those things. When you look at the major crime happening in American cities right now, which is really hasn't been seen since like 80s, 70s level crime, perhaps even worse than that in some cases in particular cities, and the impunity those people have to commit crime in the name of course, equity. If you look at, for example, the amount of influence the government has over your life, being able to spy on you and monitor you whenever they want to without a warrant, getting warrants from false courts that are not accountable to the broader system of checks and balances in our country. I mean, if you look at a lot of things, if you look at the ignorance of the American population and them allowing so many abuses to happen because they're distracted by the sort of Pavlov's dog sort of catnip that is being hung in front of their face by the media. Okay, I understand. Oh, you look at the fact that Gen Z tends to like TikTok and social media and dopamine hits more than they like their country or the Constitution. I can understand why someone would look at America and say, we're lost. Having said that, I think it's important to take a long range, not a short-term view. The reason the black pill is so powerful is because it takes all of the anecdotes of our culture and then blows them up towards a broader narrative that tends to conform to the biases and beliefs of the person creating those narratives. What do I mean? A leftist, for example, who saw the Dobbs case, which struck down Roe v. Wade and basically made it open season for states to either legalize or criminalize abortion. A leftist may see that, and I have had leftists call me on my phone after the Dobbs case happened, people who I love dearly, who I think are just misguided on this issue. They said, "Christian, they're coming for women. Christian, they're coming for gays next. They're going to come for you. This is a fascism." Da, 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 da. Well, leftists believe that abortion is a right, even though it's not. And to them, when you take away one right, all the other rights that, again, are not really rights at all, but different story, different day, are on the table. So for them, it's Armageddon. Okay, now let's go over to the right, where you see conservatives responding to what the phenomenon that happened in America concerning parents who spoke out against things in the education curriculum that does not conform with actually teaching. It conforms with indoctrination of a certain viewpoint, them getting monitored by the FBI and them getting castigated and everything, and virtually nothing being done to stop the government from using those people. They may say, well, now we can't even have free speech in our country, the FBI will monitor us and they'll get us, lock us up. To them, that's also Armageddon. Now, I'm not saying that either side, I'm not saying that viewpoint that the conservatives have is wrong. In fact, it's actually quite odious for the FBI to monitor any American for really any reason that is not A, constitutional, B, moral, and C, justified on those two grounds by a warrant that takes into account the morality of the action and the constitutionality of the action, not the so-called national security implications of the action, which oftentimes actually is just a euphemism to violate rights at the behest of governmental interests. Different story, different day. I got a lot of news to make. Oh my gosh. Different story, different day. But what I am saying is that one instance or 10,000 instances or 100,000 instances, while they may be a bad thing, it does not mean that doom is certain to come. The problem with the black pill is that the black pill endorses the philosophy of determinism, which says in very short order that certain things are bound to happen regardless of what you do, when you do it, or how you do it. That certain events just will happen by virtue of them being caused by an entity that is bigger than you, more powerful than you, and therefore outside of the scope of your actions. In this case, that entity are these cultural institutions that have created a lot of the mess that we're in. The entity will be the government. And so people say, this beast is too big for me, therefore things just won't get better. Because in groups we have power, but most people just don't care about these problems. Therefore, the group won't fix it. I can't, as the individual, fix it. There is no hope, and anything else, anything to the contrary of that statement, to them, is tragic optimism. And yet, it was not mass groups of people in the society that have changed the conditions of countries and societies throughout history. It was always a gathering of uncommon men, quite a few uncommon men, who were able to convey their message to the common man. And then, by conveying their message to the common man in a way that is virtuous and that is right, were able to inspire something that they had in them but was dormant to move them towards action. This is the American Revolution. This is literally the invention of modern day society. This is literally the building of modern day advanced society that has increased human potential in so many ways, shapes, and forms. But when we begin to think of things in the broad, in the abstract, we can't consider the possibility for things in the micro, on the local, things in the personal, to actually change these situations. So what do? We default to a philosophy of determinism, where your free will is ignored at the behest of the easy answer, and then in the easy answer is to give up. But the easy answer is not always the correct answer, and that is 100% the false answer. Another one, I think that the black pill is also fueled by the algorithms of our social media digital landscape that push content in front of you that may offend your sensibilities. The content, which by the way, may not actually be uncommon, may not actually be all too different than what has occurred throughout human history. For example, many of us may think that rioting and leftists burning down things, or people burning down things in general and having impunity or just getting away with it, is an example of a decaying country. It may be, but in the 90s that was happening too. In the 70s that was happening too. In the 60s that was happening too. A lot of these things were happening throughout history. And also, I want you to put yourself in a situation, because hindsight is 20/20. Imagine you are a rural farmer in Kansas in 1930s America. The Great Depression has just begun. You are going towards the ration lines to get the food you can to feed your family. You have no money. The economy is terrible. The prospects of an American recovery are completely and utterly unlikely according to the common wisdom of the day. Would that individual have had the foresight or even the interest to predict the half a century of prosperity that would have come to the American Republic shortly after the 30s, on the onslaught in the wake of World War II, which established America as the dominant economic power of the world, even beating those rich European countries? Could they have predicted what would have happened in the 80s with the private sector becoming unleashed, the airline industry being diversified and driving down the cost of travel and therefore driving down the cost of goods and therefore connecting people all across the world and laying the foundations for a economy that is interconnected and therefore value that can be increased, what those same people would have been able to predict, the United States being able to advance space technology to put men on moons and be able to study our constellations, will those same people be able to predict the dominance of the automobile that would come shortly after the Great Depression? Would those same people be able to predict the internet, which is this crescendo of human potential, which has been unleashed and has allowed me and you to have this conversation, even though we may be thousands of miles apart? Would these same people have been able to predict the good things that would come after that period? Or would they have been bound by their pessimism to only see what is in front of them, reject their faith, reject their reason for the now? It is the mark of a great man to be able to see a future when in the present it does not appear that one is evidently on the horizon. It is the mark of a great man. What differentiates a great man and an uncommon man from the common man and the mediocre mind is the great man's ability to see a vision of what could be, align that vision with reality, and then take steps in reality to achieve what could be. This process of thinking, aligning, and then doing, this spiritual process is what created America. This spiritual process is what created Western civilization. If you had asked the British colony people, the British colonialists, who may have never known a world without King George and without the banner of the monarchy flapping high above it, and being in dominion over all these different territories, all these different domains, if you had asked them, do you think in this new world, in these Americas, that we could birth forth a civilization based not on status, based not on the monarchy, based not on the vestiges of materialism endemic to monarchical systems, but based on the spiritual value of the individual? And man, they would have told you, what are you talking about? There is no world beyond that. And yet it was uncommon men that got up and made it possible. Not because they changed the world, but because they aligned themselves and their people with the world in a way that was righteous and virtuous. And yet the black pill would have kept America a British colony. The black pill would have kept people riding stagecoach horses and not being able to be efficiently transporting. The black pill would have kept people out off the moon, off constellations. The black pill would have denied us an internet. The black pill is antithetical to the human spirit, and it cannot be embraced. This does not mean ignore reality. This does not mean be happy-go-lucky and be tragically optimistic. This does not mean all those things, but it does mean that you cannot allow a few things that you care about to color your perception of the world. The truth is, the black pill, to impose your black pill mentality upon the rest of the world and to phrase things in the terms of your mind is the height of hubris and arrogance, which is the enemy of reason. It's a delusion and a vicious form of projection. You know what projection is? When you think the world revolves around you, when you try to project your own insecurities in your own life, this is deep, guys. Try to project your own insecurities and your own beliefs onto other people when you expect them to conform to them, and when they don't, you think something's wrong with them, as opposed to looking at yourself and asking yourself, what's wrong with me for thinking this crap? That's what that is. That's what that is. And when you have a bunch of people united by algorithms in this disintermediated, non-physical digital space, not meat space, but this disintermediated space, and they're able to combine their individual mutual projections about the world that conforms to their biases, that conforms to their anecdotes, that conforms to their narrow-minded viewpoint, and they're all in an echo chamber, what do you get? You get a replication effect where you see other people in this space thinking just like you, and you'll begin to think and be affirmed in your beliefs. You'll begin to think that your ideas are correct. Well, I'm here to tell you, Christian Watson's here to tell you, that if you're in that situation, if you're what I just described, you need to think deeply. You need to reconsider what you have been held on to believe. You need to reconsider why you are so pessimistic, why you default to determinism, why you don't believe in your own free will. You need to reconsider the periods of history where things were much worse than they are now. You need to ask yourself, if I put myself in the shoes of a common man in that period of history, would my thoughts be different, or would they be more like what they are today? Now, if I put myself in the shoes of an uncommon man in that period of history, what would my thoughts be? And if you can't put yourself in the shoes of an uncommon man, you should also ask yourself, okay, then am I thinking in an uncommon way? Am I thinking in a way that actually challenges what I believe? Am I thinking in a way that actually refines these ideas that I have hold dear? Or am I a slave to these ideas that I have come to embrace? And then, by virtue of being a slave to these ideas, a slave to the sensation they produce, that is pessimism, that is the black pill. In my opinion, it would be very beneficial for us in political discourse to discard of these pills, discard of these metaphors, and simply see things as they are. I'm not saying put on the rose-colored glasses. I'm not saying put on the black glasses. I'm not saying be neutral. I'm simply saying look at the world for how it is and conform your ideology, your biases, and your preconceptions to empirical reality. Allow reason to refine that, and then see where it takes you. I promise you, many of you will be better served by that than you are listening to certain commentators who harp on about Civil War 24/7, than you are listening to certain commentators who harp on about World War III and how we're all going to die and how humanity is needlessly ended, than you are listening to commentators who will try to tell you that American institutions are inherently dead and our children are going to have a terrible future because of leftists. You would be better served by just looking at reality and then trying to think like an uncommon man, and then proceeding from there. Don't listen to people who have no fruit to give you. Don't listen to folks who are simply going to tickle your ears and tell you what you want to hear. Listen to people who will empower you to think clearly, think rationally, because that is the only way that the black pill, the white pill, or any other of the damn pills will become irrelevant, and reason will be the dominant, prevailing, and primary standard by which we consider this world, politics, and the events of our culture. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. If you want to help support my mission, which by the way, I need help, thank you. Donate to me on Patreon, PayPal, Locals. My Locals is the best way to support me. Join that community. I'm trying to build it up. Make sure that we have some good, pensive conversations, we can get some good value to people. Join my Discord. Comment on this video. Leave a like. If you don't even donate, just leave a like. Liking this video helps with the algorithm, because I intend to get this message towards as many people as possible so that people can be exposed to the light of truth and taken away from the darkness of pessimism. My friends, I love you guys so much, and please, forever and eternally, stay pensive. Bye, everyone.